I don't also, frankly, don't believe in forgive and forget. You don't have to forgive, and you certainly are never
Yeah,
going to forget. But
that's true.
you can get past. You can go past it. And so you
Yeah.
leave that there. And it actually enhances your own life.
Hey everyone, I'm Denise Tova, your host of Beyond the Bar podcast, and I have a very special guest. We've been sort of moving around in the same circles, and I've seen her name professionally, and just been really wanting to get to know her. And so she is a dynamo. Divorce attorney, Heidi Harris. She's a partner at Mosberg, Sharma, Stambleck, Gross LLP, a law firm in New York City. And she spent nearly 3 decades. And she doesn't look like she's been doing it that long, and that's a compliment. Really helping people navigate the tough stuff during a divorce. And what I've learned just anecdotally is that Heidi has gone through one herself after 25 years of marriage, and that's not easy. But she made it work. She made it work with her ex-husband, and they now travel together. And so that's always great to hear, and it'll be interesting to hear. And there's so much more to her, and I cannot wait to get to know her. Heidi, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for all the nice things.
Yeah, well,
You said.
and like I said, right, a few minutes ago, I was like, and I truly mean it from the bottom of my heart, and I don't believe in flattery. So to me, it's like if you have nothing nice to say, don't say it. Don't say, "Hey, you look great," if you're not feeling it. So,
Thank
um,
you.
but I'm sure you've seen some of my episodes, and I'm truly a curious person, and I like to start with, tell me your story. Who were you growing up, and how did you get here?
Okay, my story is not terribly unique or interesting. I grew up on Long Island. I went to college. I was an English major with no real career path in front of me. My parents generously offered to send me to law school. I graciously accepted. I became a lawyer. In law school is actually where I met my husband, former husband. Um, and matrimonial law, it's almost like when people rescue a dog, they rescued me. I mean, it came to me. I didn't really seek it out. But I stuck with it, as you say, for it's actually been over 30 years. And that's what I do is kind of all I know at this point. So it's a short, uninteresting story, but it's my story.
No, 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 no. You're downplaying it. That's all. Oh, that's all I do. Oh my gosh, it takes a village to go through it. Did you have any lawyers in your family growing up?
No,
No?
no, no. My mother was a school teacher. My father actually, he passed away when I was 25, but he
Oh,
was a builder. He came to this country in 1949, having escaped the war. He was born in Poland, so he had no real formal education. It was a big deal to him that I became a lawyer, frankly, because he didn't have any real education, as I mentioned. So no, no, no lawyers at all in the family. It was 4 years of college to, really not knowing what to do. I just never had the passion. I didn't grow up saying I'm going to be a lawyer. Honestly, though, I'm glad that I did it. It's a great job. It's a super interesting job, actually.
yeah, because you really you have the dividing of the stuff, the assets, and you have to be super creative sometimes.
Yeah,
It'd be people be surprised that the conversations around splitting up the bedroom furniture, forks and knives, and or I don't know. It seems mundane to people who are not in it, but when you're in the thick of it, and it's emotionally laden. But then you have the sexy stuff like the cryptocurrency, and then you have to deal with the private equity and all that other stuff.
correct. Yeah,
But you have children that
yeah,
you can't put a price tag on the children, and you can't just
yeah.
divide them.
It's
That's
a
not easy.
full gamut practice for sure. And I don't know that people who aren't lawyers at all or not involved in it really understand exactly. I mean, we say how many landmines there actually are, but there are so many aspects. And as I'm sure you've heard 100 times from other matrimonial lawyers, you're seeing good people at their worst. You're seeing people highly charged emotionally. People don't plan to get divorced for the most part. Even those with prenups aren't necessarily planning the divorce. That would be rare. And so it's, people get blindsided, people are angry, people are sad, people are emotional, and there's a lot of that to it. It's not just like a real estate transaction. And, what I also tell a lot of our clients is that unlike other transactions, where if you're making an offer or you're ready to accept an offer, but it's not settling, it's not happening, you can't take it to anybody else. That
Mm,
your spouse is the only other person on the other side of the table. You can't say, you know what, you want to buy my business for this amount of money? Down the street, I can sell it. You can't. So it really
wow.
requires everybody to at some point get on the same page and get it done.
Wow. And then you went through it yourself.
I did. Of course, I didn't plan for it either. It happened 25 years into the marriage. I knew him for 30. And, what I did know was that I did not want to litigate anything, that we have two children. At the time, they were 18 and 13. It was going to affect them no matter what, no matter how well it was handled. I am not, and I think that the whole experience gave me a little more insight, a little more understanding of the whole process for most people. Whereas, before that, I was a lawyer for a very long time and, I understood what was happening. But when you go through it yourself, I think you have just a little bit of an added sense to it. And, we would have so many clients saying that their children deserve to know what's going on. They deserve to know what's going on behind the curtain. And I wholly disagree with that. I don't think children
Mm,
deserve that. I think children deserve to know that their parents are going to keep them out of it, and that their parents are going to behave like adults and like their parents, and they're going to continue on to make their lives. Look, when you have children, you're going to screw them up. I mean,
oh yeah.
we're under the best of circumstances, we screw up our children. Every
Yeah.
day we make a bad decision. Just
Yeah.
happens. But we have the power to not make it worse. And that's something that I really, really try to implore upon people who are so angry at their spouses
Mhm.
and feel that, they don't deserve time with our children, or they don't just because of what they did to me.
Yeah.
And, I don't, it's hard to get that message across sometimes, but it's really true. And it can be done. This was not, an easy divorce for me for sure. It was not something done lightly or on the spur of the moment. Obviously, we had a very long history. Um, but I didn't think my children needed to be involved to that
Mm,
degree. And after years, it didn't happen right away. The anger started to subside,
mm.
and we are now absolutely friends. There's no other way to describe it. I know you mentioned we travel together with the children, though. I want to be very clear. So it's
Important.
with the kids.
Yes,
I am
yes.
not, yeah. But they have adapted to that.
Mm,
Our family dynamic was nice. And I think being able to return to it in a way where, we obviously have separate bedrooms when we travel, and when it's over, we go to our separate residences.
mm,
But we have managed to do that. And before we got to that point, we made sure that if we were going to attend a concert for our 13-year-old, we weren't going to sit on opposite sides of
mm.
the auditorium so that you have to look for mom there and look for, I mean, I feel like you can suck it up for
Yeah.
an hour and a half and just sit next to them and have your child feel normal and not have it be so in their face that this is going on at a time when they should just be playing the violin, and they shouldn't be worrying about it. So we both made that very, very conscious effort. And, ultimately, I think it's better for everyone, frankly. We all have a nice time and then we all go our separate ways and that's it. And it can be done. It actually can, but everybody has to want to do it. One person can't be the only one. Know that.
Oh my God, you are
I
awesome.
know it's unusual.
No,
It's
no.
unusual.
I like unusual because I believe that, me myself, I choose oftentimes the road less traveled, practical, and this is phenomenal. And the way you summarized it, I went through it myself too, and I had been
Mhm,
in divorce related industry, obviously not a lawyer
mhm,
as a financial person, but nonetheless been through it. And what was interesting is, it was obviously hurt in the beginning. It was not something that he wanted, I did, and it was not. It's always messy, right? And
yes.
but the one thing that I think was helpful was not a lot of mudslinging. I mean, he obviously was blindsided, so he was upset and try to, sort of tell the kids, look what mom did, blah, blah, blah. But you know what? I did not engage. I always spoke about him and I wasn't like, over the top, but in a respectful way. And and then it just sort of like kids started seeing that they were getting tired of what they would hear from him, from their dad. And it didn't linger. I mean, we would meet at a meeting point, just sort of pick them up, drop them off, and then it was like, hey, how is it going? And and they were involved in sports, so how are we going to do this? And then it just gets tiring, right? To hold down to
It's
conflict. And
exhausting. It's
it gets
exhausting.
exhausting. So we became friends and we
Yeah.
co-parented for now, it's gosh, I mean, 20 something years. And it's funny. My kid said, Mom, I really want to tell you that the way you and dad had figured it out, we never felt like we were kids of divorced parents. Whereas
Right.
our friends at school who have like intact families where they bicker and fight all the time, they're worse off. So,
100%.
credit to you. Wow.
100%. Also, I think there does come a point. I don't also frankly don't believe in forgive and forget. You don't have to forgive, and you certainly are never
Yeah,
going to forget. I mean, that's a ridiculous concept. But
that's true.
you can get past. You can go past it. And so you
Yeah.
leave that there. And it actually enhances your own life, not just your kids' lives. Walking
Yes.
around, first of all, who wants to listen to it after a certain amount of
Yeah.
time? It becomes
Yeah.
so old, it becomes so tiresome.
Yeah.
No one's going to go out to dinner with you if all you're going to do is continue to bash somebody for years. Like you have your moment, and then there comes a time where you have to pack it away and live your own life. And by the way, because your marriage is not successful doesn't mean your life is not successful, right? They're
Wow.
not the same thing. Yeah. So that's just the way it has to be. And I think if you're able, and by the way, I will also say, I had a lot of therapy. This was not like I woke up and said, "Oh, this is what I'm going to do." I had someone to talk to, and I think that that is essential for
Yes.
everybody going
Yes.
through a divorce. And now it's probably easier than ever to find people because you can do it online if you can't afford the $500 an hour, psychiatrist, on
Yeah.
Park
Yeah.
Avenue. But you have to have
You do.
somebody to talk to who's also going to tell you when it's time to pack it away and
And
say,
not your
what, you got
kids.
that.
Your kids are
Not your
not your
kids,
therapists.
not your kids. And if they need someone to talk to, you have to
Yes.
listen to them because sometimes they are sending you the message that they need someone. And you can't say, well, I don't know if they need therapy. Yeah, they do. We're not in an era where there's any stigma attached to it at all. It should be a budget item on your net worth statement
Yes.
while you're going through a divorce. It is helpful and it keeps you grounded and you have someone who doesn't have a vested interest in any of this to
True.
listen to you objectively. And like I said before, to tell you, you know what, Heidi, now you're done with that. Now we can put that away. You've gotten it all out. It's out. It's over. Like something else. Do that. And
Wow.
that also brings me to one other thing that when I was thinking about, when you had asked me before we scheduled this, advice or what, I think that people getting divorced need to really consider the long game, and lawyers too, the long game, not the short. These cases tend to be a series of short games sometimes, where you have these motions, and I won the motion, I won this motion, I won that motion, but you got to get it across the finish line, and your eye really always has to be on the long game. And how do you want your life to be after this is over? Do you want to be, and by the way, and I'm not suggesting by any means that you shouldn't do all of your due diligence and you shouldn't look for whatever assets might be hidden away and tucked away.
Right.
You know your spouse, though, most likely. Sometimes there are people who are completely confused that their spouses have done something they never saw coming.
Yeah.
But after a long marriage, you kind of know where they can make mistakes and where they're not being completely dishonest with you and things
Right.
like that.
Right.
There's also a point where you realize there's, the diminishing returns theory, going after everything under every rock may not get you very much more. You're going to spend a lot of money on your lawyers to do it. And, what do you want to come out of the case with? What do you want? What's important to you? What's really important to you? So in my case, for example, it was very important that I kept my home, my apartment, right?
Mm.
And I got that. That was great. And then other assets got divided the way that we divided them, and we, worked it all out. But like, what the other thing that I knew about, because I had been with my ex-husband at that point for 30 years, I knew myself, I knew there was going to come a point in my life. I didn't know when it was going to happen, but it was going to happen, that I was going to need something from him. I was going to need him for something. And if I made this so torturous for him, because don't forget, I had the ability to do that. I am a lawyer who does this for a living. Like, I know all
Yeah.
the ins and outs, right? I had my firm behind me on this. This wasn't going to cost me anything to do this. This was just, I could make his life horrible through the court system if I wanted to. But I knew if I did that, and there was going to come a day that I needed something, he was never going to do it for me. He'd be like, "What are you, crazy? Remember what you put me through?" Absolutely not.
Yeah.
So I think we have
Wow.
to think about, and mostly when you have children. If you don't have children, I think it's a very different story, because you really
Mm.
never have to talk to the person again. You're not going to need anything from them. But when you have kids and you have to somehow manage this life for them, really put them first. It's about the long game, and like, why am I doing this? How is this going to advance? How's it going to be good for me at the end? And so you have to think about, what are you willing to let go of that's not really going to make a difference? And principle is the principle of thing. It's a very expensive commodity, I think. I think you have to be sensible and look at the long game, and you don't have to make every single motion along the way just because you can win it. Because, like I said, it costs money, it takes time, and it builds bad will. But there are cases, of course, where that's just the case.
Yeah.
This is the ideal Heidi world I'm talking about.
No, I
Yeah.
mean, that is such great advice and perspective. You're right, and life is so short, and to be
Really.
just be practical, and if you can be a little long-term oriented and not so short-term oriented. Now, you brought up an interesting point to your dilemma. So let's say, you're going through it and you are emotionally just you wrapped in emotion, so it's hard to see through that and hard to think clearly. And I'm sure it's not easy if you have the other side's attorney, playing the short game and not being on
Yeah.
board with the long game. Um, but you know what, I think even if you do not have children, if you do not think about what the rest of your life, what you have to carry for the rest of your life, and how faster you can heal, because you may not have children together, but you may have had same friends
Mhm.
and relatives, and maybe you want to remain friends with them. And
Yeah.
you need to sever everything? Why does it have to be so ugly? And just remember that it's not about getting vindicated. The courts do not, they're not there to make things more or less fair for one or the other. It does
You're
not
right. By the way,
come.
there is no such thing as fair,
No,
right? So,
no.
like, as a parent, I have told my children since they were little, I never want to hear it's not fair. Fair is a fake concept. Nothing is designed to be fair, right? There are things
Yeah,
that are right and wrong, but fair, what does that actually mean, right?
I know.
It's not fair, right? It doesn't make sense to me.
Mm,
So, 100%, yes, I think but I understand also, and again, having been through it, you know, it's hard for some people to
Sure.
get to that
Yeah.
point. And I think as lawyers, our job is to, or one of our jobs of the many, is to counsel clients when it's not necessary to
Mm,
push for that extra something that is only going to make it harder for you in the end, you know, and
yeah.
because you're right, you have a whole life ahead of you. And, you know, you can spend it however you want at that point. There's a lightness that comes. I mean, you've probably felt it too after you get divorced.
Oh,
It's not, it's not like you know, I'm so sorry. It's really not.
yeah.
It's, you know, it's a weight off when it was meant to happen. And, you know, I
Yes.
don't look at a 25-year marriage that went through a divorce as a failure. I mean, I was in a relationship for 25 years or 30 years. Like that's a successful relationship. And
Very.
it ended. And now, you know, now it just what it
Yeah,
is.
yeah, this is really, I think this is such a great insight and so helpful. And what do you enjoy doing when that's something that has absolutely nothing to do with the law.
Right.
Completely.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I what do I do in my free? I guess what I do in my free time. I read.
Free.
I go
Yeah.
skiing.
Oh,
Yeah. Well, my during our marriage, we had a home in Vermont also, and my children were both racers in Vermont. They ski raced, and I learned how to
wow.
ski when I was 40 years old. So I was never going to be like I'm a
Same.
solid intermediate skier. Um, I just came back in March. My older son and I went to Cortina skiing together,
Wow.
which was great until I fractured my pelvis and I realized, you know,
What?
I don't ski as much as I used to, and I
Oh
probably
gosh.
should have taken another lesson. But it was a great trip. Honestly, I would do the whole trip again, even with it. It wasn't so terrible. And so I
Wait a
do
minute.
that, but that's
What happened? Did you ski like
we
what?
fell. I just
Ungroomed black? What?
no, it was a very it was the opposite actually. It was a very crowded, not difficult run getting to a lift.
Mhm.
And I my tips were like too close to somebody else's back
Oh.
of the skis, and it was
Mhm.
a bit of a crash. And
Sorry.
so that's okay. I thought I just like pulled a muscle or
Yeah.
something, and ended up going to the hospital there, and they thought that it was a break, and then I was coming home the next day anyway, so they yes, it was two fractures. And I actually had to ski two more runs to get back to
You're
after that
such a
was done.
badass.
Well, right.
Oh
No,
my
but
God.
it was great. But that's something that I do. That's something fun that I do. You know, I mean, I try to be active. You know, I work out every single day, even though it's you know, I walk it. You know, just that kind of stuff. Just
Yeah.
being around friends, being around. You know, just whatever looks interesting. I go to the theater a lot, and by the way, I do a lot of it by myself. If I, you know, I came to the
Good.
conclusion also, like if and this would be advice for my younger self. If you enjoy doing something just do it, whether you're with someone or not. Just do it. Just do so. So I
Mm.
take a lot of trips on my own. I go skiing by myself. I've gone to Vail alone. You know, it's great. It's a great time just to do the things you like to do. So, you know, like I said, life is short. Just might as well do it. Right? Yeah.
You really are my hero. It's seriously, there's like a lightness about you and
Thank you.
practicality, great energy. And yeah, I mean, protect your space and especially for women, you're so right on point. Don't be afraid. Do not be afraid.
Don't
Don't
be
have fear. You
afraid.
don't have to, trek to Vietnam on your own, but start,
If you want to do it. If
slow.
you don't, don't. Right.
Yeah,
There's, you know, there are
exactly.
plenty of things you can just, you know, even a weekend trip, just go, you
Yes.
know, to like up to the Berkshires or something for a weekend. You know, there are a lot of look, there's a lot of places designed for solo travelers now where you're not going to be, you know, that I went to some place in St. Lucia in
Ooh.
May, where it's a lot of singles, you know, I'm saying single people go, they're solo travelers, and you know, they'll have a community table for dinner. You know, it's like a
Oh,
wellness place. You know, you exercise, you take hikes, you go by the beach. It was terrific. You know, spent 5 days there. It was great. Oh,
would you have dating advice for people after?
Um, no, you know, look, I would say don't chase it because chasing it
Mm,
um, I don't think works that well. I think the energy comes across a little desperate, and you
yeah.
don't need to be desperate You don't need it. And be picky. Be picky. I would give that advice to anyone of any age. Be picky. Because if you're sharing yourself with someone, it should be somebody who's worth having you around. And
Yeah.
but truly you do have to hit a point, and this was also an adjustment, no question, because again, 30 years together with somebody,
Yeah.
of being absolutely okay being alone, not being lonely being alone, but feeling like
Mm,
sometimes I'd rather be alone. Sometimes, look, if you're dating somewhere, you go out for dinner with someone and you realize this isn't like you say, I'd really rather just go home and be by myself. Like this is
yeah.
not where I want to be. And learning to enjoy your own company, I think makes all of it easier. You become a more interesting person to other people. You're not rushing into the next thing when you're not ready. And you know yourself, and you know what you can tolerate, you know what you can't, you know how much time you want to spend with someone else, you know how much time you need to be by yourself, and I think so. I'm not a fan of the chasing it. If you know people who know people, absolutely say, if you know anyone, if you know
Yeah.
anyone. Um, I've met a lot of great people that way. And and also there's a little accountability there, right? Somebody's vouching for this person. It's not some,
Right.
whatever. I think it's harder to meet people organically the way it used to be, like just running into someone and starting a conversation. That
Yeah.
doesn't happen as often as it used to. And so that's why you just have to be comfortable, just go out, just do your thing. And if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, you have to be absolutely okay with it, because that could happen. And then otherwise you're going to settle because
Yeah.
you're afraid of being alone. And to me, that's worse. I mean, but some people don't like to be alone and they would rather turn themselves into a pretzel. And that's for them. Yeah, that's okay.
I love it. Yeah, no, don't be, you're right. The desperate look, that's not a good look.
It's not a good look. It's
And
not a good look.
and then you settle, and then next thing you realize, this person's crowding your space and you can't wait for them to get the hell out. I mean, it's funny. I mean, I've been happily married now, since obviously repeated marriage for both of us. And, it was a long distance relationship for many years, truly long distance. And we became friends, and you go through
Mhm.
seasons. But what was nice is I'd come visit and then go right back, got on a plane, flew
Yeah.
to my space.
Oh,
And
yeah.
now we're obviously been together, married and everything, share space, but I still, I go to my own office. I get on a
Yeah.
plane and I fly to Colorado to see, my daughter, my granddaughter, or just, I can get into a hotel somewhere near a body of water, and nothing is wrong with me or our relationship. I need it. And I love
I
what you're saying.
I
Yeah.
completely get that. I once spoke to somebody who was divorced, and she said to me, I love being able to sleep diagonally in my bed. And I thought that was the best line,
That's great.
right?
Yes.
Right. So there is, yes, I like coming home to my space, for sure. And it doesn't mean that I don't like being with other people. That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
But you gotta, jumping out of the frying pan into the fire. And also keep in mind, after you've been married, especially if you're going to date someone who's also has been married before, and certainly, at my age, that would be the likely scenario. We're fully baked now. Like, we are who we are. It's not like when you meet
Yes.
someone when you're 21 and you're going through life together and you're changing together and you're navigating it together. So, like,
Sure.
it's hard to change at this age. Certainly harder, not impossible, but you want to make sure you're doing it for the right reason,
Yeah.
and that you're, but I mean, making compromise is fine for sure. But it's just harder also because we all are very set in our ways. Yeah.
Oh, most certainly. And I guess maybe just think about what are your non-negotiables and just like wave
Yeah.
off the other stuff. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think when you're what it's interesting thing about changing somebody. I would add to what you said about after you go through it and getting into therapy, and I also think it's doing your own work, because you realize that as you go from one relationship to another. Now if you've been married for 25 or so years, probably not, but as somebody who maybe now is playing that serial dating, and you realize, it's always the other person, or you think it's the other person, you may want to think about You're the one carrying the bag of the same
Yeah,
stuff with you, and it's your stuff. And until you do your own work, it doesn't matter who you date
correct.
and how great they are. They're not going to change. It's really you that needs to do the work. And maybe as a result, you will impact them too. But to expect someone to change, I mean, it's just not happening.
It's very hard. There are certain traits that are unchangeable for sure. And then there are others that I think, you could probably meet in the middle. But, look, we've all, like I said, at this age, we've all been beat up a bit. So you
Yeah.
have to sort of do have to make some compromises. And
Yeah.
again, somebody once made the analogy to me that it's like going to JFK and watching all the bags coming off the carousel. And like you got to find one that's like, it's fine. It's not too beat up, it doesn't look too bad. And that's what you try to go for. But,
Okay. So you don't want to settle, but at the same
right.
time, you want to make
Right. You want to
sure.
still have a handle and wheels, right? But, it doesn't have to be perfect. I
Oh,
mean, you have to
that's
be realistic, of course. And again,
yes.
yes, you're 100% right. Like, what's important to you? What's the most important traits to you, and
Yeah.
being realistic about it too, because, you're not going to find one person with everything. There's no such thing. And you can't be everything to somebody else either. You gotta just find like what,
Yeah.
you know.
You said that your dad wanted you to become a lawyer.
Yeah. Yeah.
If who do you think you would become or be if you couldn't practice law?
It's a great question. Possibly, honestly, a teacher like my mom. Like I really
Hmm.
do enjoy, the times which aren't that often anymore, but when I get the opportunity to do lectures and prepare those and speak in front of people, I like that. I understand why she likes that. And I mean, she's retired now. She's 87, but she's still, which I find terrific and amazing. She still is involved with a bunch of different groups, a lot of women's groups, and she does do lectures and put on presentations where she does research and she either does them at Zoom or live and keeps her juices flowing also. Which I just love that. It's a great role model and it's a great, so something interacting with people. I think I don't know that I could have a job or even a law job where I'd be just looking at documents all day and drafting agreements. I really like the interaction. That's one of the things I like about the job a lot is I like going to court, not necessarily to fight, but to persuade and to talk and to, be able to see if you can, make the point better. Like that's interesting to me. I like that.
How do you deal with unreasonable counsel on the other side, attorney on the other
Yeah.
side? I don't want to say adversary necessarily, it's like when you're
Yeah.
labeling, but just someone who really does not understand the long game and is taking it on as their own personal mission.
So, what I have come to believe is, look, it helps when you know the judge, obviously, if you've been before them
Yeah.
before. But I tell clients this also all the time that these cases are often beauty contests, right? The judge has a lot of discretion. And it comes down to who is the judge trusting? Who is the judge
Mm.
trust? And if you can be the kind of lawyer who can acknowledge if your client made a mistake, or if you made a mistake, and but we're going to fix it, or this, and you can be a trustworthy advocate for your client, I think that goes so far. And that's really how you can, I think, not get a judge to do what you want them, what you want to be, but you've earned trust.
Yeah.
That is a huge commodity.
Mm.
And that comes with experience for sure. And understanding, you know, how the system works and just how people work. So if you've got someone on the other side who just, is reiterating the same mantra, and if you can demonstrate to a judge you're going to help look for solutions, they love
Mm.
to hear that because judges, I think, down deep in these cases, they want to do the right thing. I do
Yeah.
believe it. Maybe it's naive, but I do think that they do. And if you can come in and try to persuade a judge that you want to do the right thing too, and you want the right result for everybody, and you're not so rigid,
Right.
but there is a little bit of a danger. You don't also want to be the reasonable person who the judge is going to lean on more because the
Mm.
other side, that there's that line where sometimes you see that in mediation also, the other side is so rigid, you're easier to deal with. I can get you to compromise more, and you have to know where that
Ah,
line is that you can't sell out. You just can't,
yeah,
so you can settle for sure, but you can't sell out. But again, a lot of
definitely.
this just comes with experience and, and maybe having gone through it, you say, well, what would I do if this was me? Like, what would I want? Like, no, that's my non-starter. Like, I can't do that. I couldn't live that way. So, yeah.
Wow, this has been incredible. And it's probably what my favorite parting question is, because I think it can be lonely out there as a an incoming professional trying to really navigate. You have added challenges these days, technology, AI, and a lot of smaller firms getting swallowed up by the big firms. And what area of law you should get into. Somebody who's thinking about the matrimony, the family law, divorce law, what would you tell them today?
Well, if I would say run. No, but I'm joking. Sometimes I say
Run.
that. Run.
Honest.
No, but it's a stressful job. I just, sometimes when we're interviewing young associates who are looking to get into it, you sometimes will get the feeling that they're thinking this is like social work, and it's not.
Oh,
It's definitely not. It can be extremely adversarial. It's very challenging. There are a lot of areas of law that you need to have some proficiency in, and you need to know when you don't have that proficiency and you have to call an expert, right? Like it's like conscious competence, right? You have to know like what you're doing, and also know, if somebody's going to ask me a complex tax question about a private letter ruling, I'm not going to answer it. I'm going to have to call the person that I know can answer this question.
yeah.
Um, so you have to it takes a little while to know what you don't know, right? That
Mm,
just takes a little while. There are a lot of, there are just so many aspects of it. And that makes it challenging, but it also certainly makes it interesting. So someone coming into this area of law, they need to be able to talk to clients and not get annoyed by them if they're calling 10 times a day with the same question, because sometimes it's just what their process is, and you have to just be patient with it, and get them through. You're guiding people. Um, but it can be extremely rewarding for sure. Uh, you know, um, every now and again you get a really lovely, card from somebody who tells you that, they're doing so great, and thank you, for getting them through this very tough time. And I had one former client who wrote to me and said, I can actually say I enjoyed my divorce. It was
that's
lovely.
great. That's
Um,
great.
yeah. So,
That's great.
it sometimes doesn't
Wow.
feel like it, but at the end game is you are trying to help somebody, get out of a terrible situation and get them, what they need so that they can begin the next piece of the next chapter, which is so trite, but the next piece of their lives, and to do it, as unscathed as possible. For sure.
Wow, I didn't think we were going to talk about divorce, and it's not your work. It's really it's part of you, your experience, and just your outlook. In my mind, it's fresh. It's so, yeah, I think it's extremely helpful. And you say things both as a professional and also someone who have been through it, that many people are thinking about, just don't have the guts to say it out loud. I mean, all of this makes sense. And because I hear so many cliches, and I'm going, just don't be afraid. I know you want to say it differently. I know you want to say more. So this has been, Heidi, this has been refreshing. Wow.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no, you're awesome. Well, thank you so much. This was a really meaningful conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This was also like a little therapy session. It was great for me too. Thank you.
Same. This is great.
I'm a huge
Um,
proponent of it. It's great.
and I'm sure, I mean, our viewers and listeners and who are about to embark on this difficult journey, I mean, make sure that you check out the bio links below to know how to get a hold of Heidi Harris. And so she'll be able to guide you through it. And of course, don't forget to hit the subscribe button on your YouTube channel, Beyond the Bar podcast. And until next time, stay curious and stay inspired.
Thank you again.